Daddy! Yes!
Daddy! Yes!
Hi guys, Grant Nelson again here with the Mustache Off-Grid YouTube channel. Hope you enjoyed the trick shot. Today's video is going to be on weather changes and preparing for inclement weather coming in. Recently here in the Ozarks we had about 2 days of negative temperatures, and it's very abnormal. Usually our average temps this time of year are about 40 degrees, so it's rare that we get it zero like that, and it was actually negative 10, you know, close to negative 10. Wind chill was negative 35, they said, or something like that. But I'm just going to show you some of the steps that I took to prepare. You know, I don't use any air conditioning. I don't use any heating, you know, other than wood heat in my building here. I insulated it. As far as it goes, if it's a cold night, I usually just use about 3 blankets. I'll use 2, and, you know, if that's not enough, then I add the 3rd one. You know, that's just a tip. Wearing layers is another tip. You know, long johns and things like that under your clothing, and you know, sleeping with your coat and a stocking cap on if it's real cold like that, you know, it could save your life. I don't have a problem with it. I'm so used to the cold and stuff, and I usually have my building nice and toasty, so I don't really have to worry about it much. But as far as it goes, the climate and the weather is something really important to consider when you're going off-grid. People don't realize the importance of this. You know, when you go to a cold place like Colorado, Minnesota, Michigan, up north like that, some of those places are all right for homesteading, but you've got 6 months of cold winter, and you're going to have to burn a wood stove that whole time. It's a real advantage having a mild winter and a mild climate like we have down here in the Ozarks, where the average winter temp is 40 degrees. It's supposed to actually be 60 degrees by the end of this week again, and it's supposed to rain about 7 or 8 days straight, it says. And you know, it's one of those things when you're gardening, when you have animals, when it's wintertime, or, you know, when you live off grid and you don't use electricity and things, we tend to, in the modern society, take for granted, if it's snowing or it's freezing temperatures, you just stay inside your heated house that it's already, you know, you just turn the thermostat. But when you don't have the thermostat and it's not all climate controlled like that, it really matters. And that's how people used to do it back in the day. And it's crazy to think how we can check the weather and see what's coming a day or 2 ahead of time, maybe even a week out, you know, what the predictions are. And back then, in the 1800s, 1700s, you know, early 1900s, people didn't have TV, they didn't have phones, they couldn't just go on there and check what weather was coming in. They had to be prepared starting in the fall time all the way to the spring for inclement weather. And they had to be prepared for rain and sleet and everything else at all times. So especially when you go down in the south, it's crazy for me to think how someone could go out there all by themselves, you know, 50 miles, 100 miles from civilization, horse and buggy, and go out there and live off the land, and how rugged that would be, not being able to know, you know, because you get further down south and they have real mild winters, and you would not expect 0-degree temperatures to come in like they did here. You know, it could really catch some of those people off guard, and it did. You know, if you read a lot of the stories on the Oregon Trail and things like that, people didn't realize the weather that was coming, and a lot of times it killed them. So it's something to consider, you know, going off grid. You start to really get in touch with the weather. You start to really pay a lot of attention to it, especially when you're farming and, you know, raising animals and growing crops and things like that. You start to pay a lot more attention to the weather. And it struck me at first when I first went off grid, because I did all my cooking the first year over the fire. And if it rained, I just ate dry goods and stayed inside. So me building a porch really helped a lot with that, because I cook on propane stove on my porch now, and it's a lot easier. Real advantage. But, you know, as far as it goes, thinking about what those people had to deal with and the instincts that come out when you live off grid of dealing with inclement weather is really interesting, and it's an instinct that we have naturally to stay warm and to stay dry and things like that. And we don't really use it or take advantage of it in modern society because everything's climate controlled. But I might have already said it, but I use wood heat only in the winter. I use no air conditioning and no climate control of any sort other than the wood heat. So I'll get into the video, let you guys see some of the steps that I took preparing for the storm. And hope this helps someone, going off grid. It's something that you're really going to want to think about, being prepared for different temperatures. I keep a propane torch as well, one of those little propane ones to de-thaw things. Just another tip, if you're going off grid, it's a handy thing to have. If you have water pumps or things like that are solar powered or even electric powered, it's something you're going to want to have to de-thaw things. If it gets real cold. So just something to consider, and I'll get into the video for you. Alright guys, so just wanted to give you guys a video of me preparing for the winter weather coming in. That's one of the things you'll have to deal with off grid is, different weather, rain, snow, heat, especially if you don't use any specific climate control. I'm just chopping some wood here. As you can see, I've got a little more wood I'll chop. I already have it cut. I cut mine with a chainsaw right here. It's that chainsaw was $98, not much. Uses mixed gas, which is gas and I think like a 2-cycle engine oil mix, something like that. So you take the mix and pour it in with the gallon of gas and mix it. I'm sure there's some people that probably don't know what I mean by that. So it's one of those things, if you buy it, a chainsaw, you'll have to know that. So actually I'll give you guys a tip on that. Just, I'm sure someone watching won't know, but basically you buy something like this, or you can get a big jug, 2-cycle engine oil, and you see it says makes 2.5 gallons. All you do is dump that in with your gas and mix it, shake it around, mix it, and that will make your chainsaw go. It'll be better for the chainsaw. Axes, there's a couple different types of axes I use. So the one I just showed you guys, that was just a regular chopping axe. This one right here is a maul that my foot's on. It's bigger, it's got a heavier head, it's a lot more like a sledgehammer. This one's lighter and sharper, and then this one right here is just a little hatchet. And I use the hatchet for if I have a small, already a cut piece of wood like this. You can get smaller pieces by just chopping it real easy. So you don't really use the hatchet for much, but I guess you could say it's a self-defense option too, a hatchet like that. But mostly it's, I just use it for kindling kind of stuff for a fire, small stuff. Another thing with the wood, someone might come out here, they might start chopping wood, they might chop a bunch of wood, and if it rains, for a couple days, or it snows for 3 days straight, and you don't have your wood pile covered up, it's going to be hard to start the fire. So I throw this tarp over the wood, and that usually helps out, helps keep the wood a little drier. I also keep a pile of dry wood down in this building down here with my lawnmower down here. I keep a pile of dry wood in here. Just back there. You guys can probably see it behind this hay bale here. Just the dry wood, and usually the reason I only keep a small pile of dry wood is because I only need 1 or 2 pieces to start one fire, and that fire goes for, you know, days possibly. So, you know, I only keep one pile of dry wood in there just so I have something that I can start a fire with, and I'll usually bring a log or 2 up when I'm getting ready to start the fire, or I'll keep a log or 2 that are, those are super dry because they're under a roof, but everything else I just keep under a tarp. You can take some leaves like these leaves down here, and some sticks, and you can keep some of them in a bucket specifically to start fires. You know, if your fire goes out or something, you want to have some dry stuff on hand to start a fire. See, there's a lot of prep that people don't realize that goes into fire, you know, starting a fire. This is just for an indoor fireplace. I use a you know, pretty simple wood stove that runs through the wall. It's real simple. You get yourself a wall thimble like this. There is air in here. I don't use any insulation or anything in here. It'd probably be nice if I did, but I just think it's a little safer not using that. Not that it's you know, specifically up to any special standards or anything. I just took stovepipe, put it together, and ran it to the wood stove. I'll show you guys the wood stove. It's just an old cast iron wood stove. I don't use anything special. Some people even use like a barrel wood stove. So it's kind of dark in here, so I don't know if we'll be able to see it good, but we'll see what I can do here. Yeah, it might be a little better. Yeah, it's dark. Let me see if I got a flashlight to show you guys. Yeah, I only got one window in my cabin, so here it is. Here's the wood stove I use. You guys can see it ain't anything special. You know, it's just cast iron. I rub lard on that to keep the rust off it in the springtime. When I got it, it was all rusty, and the lard takes that rust right off. As you can see in the other preps, you'll want to make sure you prep the animals. I've given them all straw in their cages, like a bunch of straw to keep them warmer, and I also put tarps over them. And the chickens, I put straw in there. The pigeons, I put fresh straw in there. I'm probably going to run a sheet over this pigeon door here just to stop some of the drafts. There's Bailey again. You could see him. Very curious on what I'm talking about here. But yeah, just wanted to give you guys some pointers. You know, whenever off-grid specifically, when weather's coming, or when you suspect weather's coming, you know, you kind of got to get things ready. A lot of getting things ready for it. And there's been a lot of times when I first came out here, I didn't realize how the big, you know, weather deals were. Like when I first came out here, I was staying in a tent, and you know, if it rained or something, I would sleep in my car because you know, the tent can leak and things like that. So you know, there's just a lot of things that you learn coming out here. Rain, you know, you can't get any work done. But you know, obviously in the springtime it's nice, good for the crops, but just, you know, there's a lot of planning. Yep, and just a continuation. You guys can see I've been cutting quite a bit of wood here. You know, I cut off this big old pile here when they brought the property. When I bought the property, it was just all bulldozed in a pile to clear the land. So I've been cutting on it slowly, and eventually I'll have a nice piece of cleared land when I get the pile finished. So, but yeah, I mean, you know, like I was saying, there's just a lot of preparation as far as it goes with the getting ready for a storm or something coming in. And it's one of those things off grid. You start to become more aware of the weather. You know, living in town, I never really thought about it because you're always inside if it's raining and you never really consider it. But when you don't have climate control, you don't have heating, you don't have plumbing, you can't just walk to the cupboard all the time. You know, hot water isn't on demand. Things like that, you know, it really changes your perspective on preparing for weather coming in. So it's one thing that going off grid you'll have to get used to. Part of the reason also that I picked the Ozark Mountains where I live, you know, where we get average winter temps of 40 degrees, because I knew that that is a huge advantage if you don't have to deal with Arctic freezing weather in the winter time. Huge advantage. Yeah, I burn the wood stove maybe 10-20 times a year, but as far as it goes, you know, if you're up north in Michigan or where I'm from in Illinois or Minnesota or Colorado or different places like that, you're gonna have to burn the wood stove 24 hours a day, 365. Well, not 365, but 24 hours a day, probably half the year, you know. And it's one of those things, like it's a huge advantage to homesteading in the Ozarks that we have average winter temps of 40 degrees. And truthfully, if it is about 40 to 25 at night, I usually just get like 3 or 4 blankets and I sleep on a couch, and that, you know, insulates me and I don't get cold at all. But tonight it's supposed to be negative, so, you know, everyone's freaking out, but not me. But I am getting ready for it. But yeah, I mean, it's a huge advantage not having to deal with that cold out here in the Ozarks. So just some homesteading tips, and hope everything's going well. Yeah, it's starting to rain, guys, but another preparation that I did for this cold weather coming in, I get my water and I store it in this tank right here. And it's supposed to be negative 3 tonight, and that tank would definitely freeze up. So my plan is to empty the tank tonight and refill it once it warms back up in the next few days. And I can always pump water with the pump in the day if I need. And then I took a few jugs that I use. See if I can get a good light here. Took a couple jugs that I use, fill them up, and a couple pails of water for the rabbits and chickens and stuff. Yeah, I had to prep my water too, because I use a tank like that and it's supposed to be negative 3. So just figured I'd show you guys that as well. There's a lot of prep that goes into weather coming in, inclement weather. And also, another thing to be aware of is that if you have things laying out in your yard that can't get rained on, you're definitely going to want them to be picked up when the weather starts coming in. So, just another tip. Oh yeah, sky looks like she's turning pretty dark over there. Man, that looks... You can see that weather coming in. Look at it. Nice and bright over there. Over there it just looks like, yeah, it looks like the storm that's coming in for sure. Well guys, you can see there's quite a bit of snow on the ground. I just figured I'd give you a video of the change after the storm. It's been about 3 days of freezing temperatures, and I got about negative 10 that night that I was chopping all the wood for the video. And you can see I have to de-thaw the rabbits' waters. I have to put them in hot water and pop them ice balls out of them when they got them bowls. But yeah, I just figured I'd give you guys a let you guys see the snow. You know, we probably got about 2 inches, I'd say, if I had to guess. And it has been cold, I will tell you, it has been cold. And another thing is your phone and batteries die really fast when it's cold like this. So just something to keep in mind if you're going off grid.